Welcome back, Wogglers. So today we're going to be talking about approval processes. What are they and how do you set them up? Alright, so first things first, we're going to click on that setup gear on the top right hand corner. And here we go. Underneath process management, we're going to choose approval processes. Alright, so an approval process is really just a way for you to tell the system to pause, if you will, and that a manager or whomever you deem as your approver should come in and look at a record before it can move forward in the process. I know it's kind of esoteric there, but let's build one as an example. So let's say for my business, when it comes to leads, if a lead comes in with a specific lead source, we need to have a specific user or a specific role, someone in a group that we've already designated who those approvers should be, needs to come in and check the lead to make sure it's a viable lead before it moves on. All right, so let's say lead source approval. All right, so when you're creating an approval, you're going to choose the module that it should be assigned to. Give it a name. You can give it a description if you want to, and then you choose when to execute it. Now, if you haven't watched any of our videos on workflow rules, or you're not already familiar with workflow rules and how they work, I do highly recommend going and watching those videos because this approval process is set up very similar to a workflow rule. You have to choose when to execute it. You have options on actions to be triggered in different scenarios under the approval process. So all of those things are available to you in a workflow rule. And so if you're familiar with them, it makes this setting up an approval process much, much easier. All right, so let's say in our business, we have an integration with a third party, like Facebook, for example, that will create leads in our system automatically. And we as a company want a specific user to come in and look at leads that are created through that integration. So we don't need to trigger it on a record edit, we need it to trigger on lead creation. So we're going to choose record creation here. All right, so now we've decided what it applies to, when it should trigger, and now we can say specifically under the criteria that the source, lead source is, let's say, social media. All right, so if a lead is created and the lead source is social media, then we choose an approver and it needs to go through an approval process. All right, so here's where you can decide it's a specific user that needs to do it. It's someone with a specific role, so it could be really anybody as long as they've had been assigned a role. You could create a group and say these are all of our lead approvers, things like that. We're going to use a specific user in this case, and we're going to say it's John. All right, John is the user. You can assign John a task when this happens. I'm going to skip over that for now. All right, and then the next up on the list of things to do here while setting up this approval process is you can configure actions once the record has been approved. So once John goes in there, he looks at the lead and he's like, yeah, this is a real lead. Let's continue on. You can update fields, you can assign tasks, you can send emails, you can call webhooks, you can call custom functions. These are all things that you can trigger once John has gone in and said, yes, I approve this lead. You can also set up automatic actions once John goes in there and says, no, this is not a real lead, I've rejected it. You can send emails, update fields, call webhooks, custom functions, all of these things. I'm not going to set any of that up because really for us in our company, if you will, we don't need to alert anybody or do anything. It's just kind of, it's either rejected or it's approved. Now, record modification. This is where things really get interesting, and this is unique to the approval process and review processes, is that while you're waiting for approval, so let's say a lead gets created and it gets created with the criteria that we've set forth, while we're waiting for John to go in and approve or reject this particular lead, we can say whether or not the fields on that record can be modified. So for an example, if we leave it just exactly like this, while the record is waiting for approval, no fields at all can be modified. So that record is essentially locked for any other user other than John. Or we can say that all the fields can be modified, or we can state very specific fields can be modified. So if your sales team has got a hot lead, it came in through social media, you can allow very specific fields to be modified during this waiting for approval process, so maybe they can nurture the lead or gather more information about it. Or you can say, nope, no fields at all can be modified during this process. You gotta wait for John to give you the okay before you even start touching it. Or you can just say all fields can be modified, you're just waiting for John. Just keep on doing what you're doing. So those are the options. And then you can also choose when a record has been rejected, that you can say, okay, all of the fields can be modified when a record is rejected, or you can leave it locked and say none of the fields can be modified. The lead's not worth pursuing anyway. Let's just lock the entire record. So that's where this really differs from, say, a workflow action or anything like that. And the last setting for approval is you can set up admins. So for example, if John is out on vacation and you need one of the managers to come in and approve something while John's gone, or this is kind of just like it creates a multi-tiered approval process, whereas you allow other admins to approve or reject records. Again, we're not going to set that up for this because there's only 2 people in our company. All right, so once you click done, it takes you to this little page where you can kind of review what you've already set up. I'm happy with this, so we're going to click save. And let's go see what it looks like. We're going to create a lead with the lead source of social media to see what it looks like when an approval process has been triggered. All right, so let's create a lead. And we're gonna pretend when we create this lead that it was a bot that created this lead. That way it can be rejected. All right, so here we go. So the company that came in was just all gobbledygook because it was bot that created this. But the lead source we had come in automatically as a social media. Let's say it was Facebook. All right, and that's all the information that we got from this lead. Go ahead and click save. Now once this saves, we're going to be able to see that it is waiting for approval. Right now, I can't change anything. I have these locks on all of the fields because it's in this approval process. So once John comes in and approves or rejects this particular lead, then I'll be able to move along with it. And as you can see, there's even a little like stamp up on the side, and I'll be able to see that as well in the lead list. It's got this little stamp. I can't even check the box next to it to do any mass updates because this one is locked in the approval process. And that's how approval processes work. Let us know if you have any further questions in the comments. See you next time. Woggle woggle.